when Johnson was trying to get back into power, the two things that they usually talk about were getting Brexit done and the success of the vaccine rollout. Well, Brexit isn't done, and the bits that are done are a disaster. We'll get onto that a little later in the programme. The intervention now from one of the few business people you could find to say that it was a good idea, now whining ceaselessly about the impacts and the damage that it's done to his business. The head of Next can't get people to work in his shops. What a surprise. What did you think was going to happen when they abolished freedom of movement? So those two lines, we got Brexit done and the vaccine rollout. The vaccine rollout, we got a small head start on other countries, but they caught us up in moments. And in fact, even in Europe, we're not at the top of the list in terms of percentage of the population that have been vaccinated. So they're just not true, those claims. But they also speak to a deliberately cultivated sense that he'd done a good job during coronavirus. And if Johnson did a good job, then obviously the Secretary of State for Health must have played a blinder. And that's so at odds, really, with the reality that we observed and shared, that I have been, without really realising it until last night, I've been struggling with the question of how you set the record straight. There are books being written. There are some that have already been published. Adam Wagner's book on the legal side of things, the legislative side of things, is seminal and definitive. But the health side of it, I don't know if you've walked past the wall where there is a tiny memorial for everyone who died. I don't know if you've paid much attention to what the bereaved family groups have had to say. They've been sort of squeezed out of the narrative. And the reason why they've been squeezed out of the narrative is, and I know we return to this a lot, and I know most people don't rely on newspapers these days for their news, but they still set the agenda. The reason, very simply, is because they were all so busy cheerleading for Boris Johnson. They were also busy insisting that he was a stand-up guy who could be trusted with the security and the welfare of the nation. All of these people, this bizarre mix of sycophants and cultists, these forelock-tugging delusionists who, sat behind microphones on radio programs, appeared on television, wrote newspaper columns, edited newspapers, all dedicated to promoting the cult of Boris Johnson. It means that they are somehow psychologically, never mind intellectually, prevented from telling the truth about what happened. And I can't quite believe that I'm saying these words, but Boy George really brought it home to me last night in a way that I was totally not expecting. Listen, I was struggling to watch it anyway because I don't know how people do it. How do people stay hateful and angry? Like far-right people, racists. How do you do it? You're just exhausting. I can't hold Matt Hancock in much lower esteem. But 5 minutes after he's in the jungle, and I'm bent double cringing. I can't watch this. This is awful. It's not even that he's being bullied. It's that he's inhabiting a reality that's just alien to everybody else. Even the other people in the camp are, a curious mixture of disgusted and outraged at the fact that he's there. I suppose the kindest thing you could say is deeply confused. Chris Moyles, I think, is playing a blinder. But then again, I would say that is a pal of mine. But I think he's going to be the big surprise on this series because he's a really lovely bloke. And he's so different from the public image that he had in his Radio 1 days that he's going to win an awful lot of new friends and admirers. So watch this space. But they're all a curious mixture of discombobulated or disgusted or just confused by Matt Hancock's presence there. And he thinks he's on some sort of rehabilitation program. I felt really uncomfortable with the way he was so obviously being set up for epic national humiliation, even though he probably deserves it. It's my character. How do you do it, racists? How do you stay so angry and so hate? People who are constantly, if you spend their lives on Twitter abusing Jess Phillips or Diane Abbott, how do you do it? I'm agog at your energy levels. Imagine if you dedicated them to something healthy. Imagine how happier your family would be if you weren't built like that. So even someone who I think there's quite a strong case for hating, 5 minutes of him being exposed to this kind of treatment, and I am close to feeling sorry for him. Until this happened, until Boy George went into is it the diary room, or that's Big Brother, isn't it? Anyway, went into the sort of private area and spoke about his feelings at seeing the former Secretary of State for Health turn up on what is essentially a glorified game show, albeit a rather high-stakes one. And it really stopped me in my tracks. Just have a little listen.
You know, at the beginning of the pandemic, my mum was in hospital and I wasn't allowed to see her and I thought she was going to die. And I was tweeting Greenwich Hospital saying, please look after my mum, you know. I used my name, I was like, please look after her. And they did, and she was fine. But I feel like I don't want to be sitting here like I'm having fun with him. You know, it's difficult for me because, you know, had something happened, if my mum had gone, I wouldn't be here now. I would have gone. He walked in. If I'd have lost my mum, I would go. And I feel a little bit selfish. You know, just kind of, you know, everyone was so nice to him and I was like, Jesus, you know. But then, of course, what are we going to do? I don't want to spoil this experience for myself. I'm not good at hiding what I feel.
Wow. And that was the point at which I went, crikey, people really do associate him with the deaths of their loved ones. People really do see Matt Hancock and presumably Boris Johnson's fingerprints all over bereavement and grief. And I mean, I don't know whether that's 100% fair. If Boy George had lost his mum, Mrs. O'Dowd, as she would be, would it have been fair to blame Matt Hancock for that? So I'm looking at this, and I'm looking at that, and I'm thinking this is a really bad move by ITV. This isn't a game show. This isn't something funny. This isn't light entertainment. This is attempting to make fun and frivolity out of someone whose reputation and whose status, whose sole qualification for getting onto that programme in the first place, is presiding over something that many people consider to be carnage, to be avoidable carnage. And I said to you, if you're just tuning in, I can't quite believe the direction my thoughts have gone in as a consequence of watching 10 minutes of I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here last night. But I couldn't work out why I felt so uncomfortable. I thought it was the bullying element, the way Hancock is being so obviously set up for a massive fall. But it was Boy George's work. Well, listen to Hancock himself, and you get an air of how seriously, how heavily the burdens of the COVID-19 crisis weigh upon his shoulders as he enters into this jungle.
I'm Matt Hancock, I'm the MP for West Suffolk, and I'm best known for being the former health secretary. Don't think I've got any fears or phobias, but I'm about to find out. Hi.
Hello.
Hi.
How's it going?
I'm Matt.
Sean.
Very nice to meet you. So this is camp. This is you and me.
God. Hello, yes.
I thought there were going to be more people.
Why didn't it?
Yeah, why are you here?
Because there's honest truth is because there's so few ways in which politicians can show that we're human beings.
Oh my God, 2 new people have arrived. One of them is Sean Walsh, and the other one, I've got to go back and double check. I can't help but think he should be at work.
Oh, that's a load of slurry. Just poured on my head.
Wait, are you still carrying on?
Yeah.
Wait for me.
Okay, come down the tunnel.
Is that your shoe? That's your foot?
Yeah, that's my foot.
I'm not going to, put a tattoo of Ed Sheeran on my neck.
You like Ed Sheeran?
I love him, yeah.
I love Ed Sheeran.
And I'm from Suffolk as well.
Okay, lovely.
Yeah. You between my arms. That one. Barefoot on the cross. Don't get me singing, I'm terrible.
No,
Listening to my favourite song. When you saw you... What's it called? Perfect. It's called Perfect.
The only thing, Alison writes, Matt Hancock is doing in I'm a Celebrity is reminding us all of what we lost, how much we suffered while they made shed loads of money and partied. Any feelings that had calmed have now been reignited. And I think we give prominence and priority today to people who did lose loved ones during the COVID-19 crisis and who consider the government's response to that crisis, inadequate and belated as it was, to have been a contributing factor to their grief. But I also want to open the door to the possibility that I'm completely calling this wrong. And just because I felt uncomfortable watching this last night and was profoundly moved by Boy George's tears, Matt Hancock has every right to have a crack at getting a new career, or that it is a complete misrepresentation. It's my own political myopia that sees him and Johnson as being responsible for utterly unavoidable tragedy, and that it is, in the words of, was it Brian Conley's character many moons ago, it's only a game show or something like that. I forget. Don't at me. Someone will at me. But am I making a mountain out of a light entertainment molehill, or is there something profoundly unsettling about ITV's decision to put Matt Hancock in the jungle?